Hello and welcome to this special edition of the Game Informer Show. That's right, you got the 500th episode. That one came, and when we did, we went above and beyond. And now we are making a Inside Xbox special edition Game Informer Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about all things Xbox and what we saw on today's broadcast that went out this morning from our good friends at Microsoft. So joining me is Joe Juba.
Hello.
Hi, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. Brian Shea with his UFC hat on and ready to go. How you doing,
Ready
Brian?
to rock. I'm doing okay.
Come on, big Xbox morning, big reveals, new games.
Xbox Thursday.
And Alex Stadnick, how you doing?
I'm whelmed. I'm good, but I'm whelmed. And
You're whelmed.
I'm whelmed.
Whelmed.
I came
so
in,
you're not overwhelmed.
I'm not overwhelmed. I came in
But
a
are you
little
underwhelmed?
overhyped. I'm not underwhelmed either. I think there was some good stuff there that I'm excited to dive into.
Yeah, don't you guys know the word whelmed? It's a common word.
I think it's appropriate to just double check what I mean sometimes. It's I'm okay with it.
So this morning, I think it all kind of kicked off, at least for me, was first there was a tweet from Aaron Greenberg, who is the Xbox Games marketing general manager. He's a bigwig over there and a really great guy. And he started the day by tweeting out ahead of time that every game you'll see on Inside Xbox is going to have a badge that says optimized for Series X. So Microsoft has put a list of requirements to get this on here. And I think that's to try to push developers from, kind of hitting the lowest common denominator between platforms to push them to make their games optimized for Xbox Series X. It's funny that the badge is called that. But we are going to go through a lot of badges, but I thought that was really interesting that was there. And then they also pointed out as this show began that every single game in this and there were 13 games total, if I'm not mistaken, are optimized for Xbox Series X.
I have a question about that quick.
Yes, sir.
So when they say optimized for Series X, I think that there's, is it clear if they mean that in contrast to PlayStation 5 or if they mean that in contrast to Xbox One?
Well, first of all, nothing in this pre-hardware thing is clear, right? There's nothing clear. Nothing is like, oh, hey, here it is, laid out to bear, right? Nothing is extremely clear. They're said it's more than 4K. It's more than just being 4K. That it's going to have more. They now whether they're saying that it's required that it be 120 FPS, that it what all those requirements are to be optimized, they don't even really say that, right? And yeah. I think it's of note too, and this is really important. You'll see this is the fine print throughout the whole event today. And by the way, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to be clear that it said at the bottom, footage representative of expected Xbox Series X gameplay, right? Which I think is important, by the way. And this is not a rip. Every single game we're going to see before it's done is not done, right? It's always representative, and game developers tend to clean up their trailers, right, to make them look as good as they can. And we've all, as gamers, been fooled by that game looks amazing, and then later learned that was just a pre-rendered movie that was in the game, right? And the game, and the gameplay was just part of it at the end that you saw, right? You never really know what is real and what's not real per se, but it's designed to get us excited, and I think that it accomplished that, right? And also, too, an important note that they brought up, not only on this footage, but they showed their partners around the world. There's obviously a lot of people working on Xbox. There was a huge screenshot of a ton of logos, which I said, logos was a theme here. There are a lot of logos, right? But these logos are out there showing that there's a lot of people behind it. Obviously, Microsoft has 15 studios that they have with the Xbox Game Studios. They pointed out that in July, hey, weird, in July, a ways away, but things will be a little bit clearer, but that the Xbox Game Studio reveals will begin in July. And they pointed directly to Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Obsidian, and 343. So Halo fans, rejoice, dance in the streets. But they were very clear at the beginning. You may have came for Halo, you ain't getting it till July, right?
They did call it the world's most anticipated game, which I think is maybe stretching the enthusiasm a bit.
Yeah, I think that's happening in June, right, with Cyberpunk? There's an event there for the world's most anticipated game.
How about world's most anticipated first-party Xbox game? I think we can add that to it and say with 100% that is true. But he's in marketing, right? Aaron's in marketing. I get it. Like certainly, there's a lot of Halo fans super excited for what 343 is doing, and we talked about it on the normal podcast too. Like, Halo is a beloved franchise, and like I think we all want nothing but the best. We want them to push it and make the greatest game ever. So I think that's really important part. And another badge, speaking of badges that we'll see and featured throughout this discussion, was that smart delivery, right? Which is that you buy once for Xbox and it's available for Xbox, any Xbox product. So if you bought it for Xbox One and then Xbox Series X comes out, you already own it. You can now play it on Xbox Series X once you were to perhaps buy that platform later down the line, which is great news. I think this is something we've talked about for a long time on this podcast, which is like, we need to remove those boundaries for gamers. When we buy a game, we own it no matter where we want to go play it. It's been a thing that I think Microsoft has taken the front lines on this, and I really appreciate Microsoft pushing smart delivery to these games. Originally, it was Cyberpunk was one of the first games mentioned, but that list has grown, obviously, with a number of games. Brian, I think you have a story up on the website now that says there's 9 games were added today to this
9
delivery?
From inside Xbox alone. 9 of them were smart delivery. Plus, Madden NFL 21 is a separate thing. It seems like where Electronic Arts is doing a thing independent of smart deliveries branding that Xbox is doing. Where if you buy Madden NFL 21 on Xbox One before March of next year, which is the weird thing, you get it for Series X for free, but they are not calling it smart delivery. It seems like it might be a separate EA initiative.
Yeah, which I it's kind of one of those things that is interesting for third parties to deal with, is the fact that, they can sign on for Microsoft's branding, but they may have ideas to be doing that as well for PlayStation to, PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, how they're going to communicate that, how PlayStation's going to communicate that if PlayStation is doing something like that. Like I said, I love Joe's first question. Is it clear? No, it is not clear. That is the other thing. Besides badges, the theme of not clear is very much a thing that we're living in right now, which is fine. It's not out yet. We have to do that. We'll have to fill in some space between the lines, and we'll do that here on this show. So that was a big thing. And the other thing I thought was really interesting, and this is my own read, that every game was like, this game has smart delivery. And I was kind of like, are they just preparing me for disappointment? Right? Like that this fall, I'm going to be like, I'm so excited for this game. I'm going to play it on Xbox Series X. I can't get Xbox Series X. I really do think, I know everyone still says the hardware's coming and it's fine and it's all going to be on time. My brain right back here, tingling, spider sense. That's like BS meter, like through the roof, that it's going to be hard to get hardware. And I think every game company, every game publisher, every game first party is going around going like, we want to make sure that this new hardware does not affect current sales, right? That you can feel confident that if you buy Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that even though you can't get the hardware you want to play it on, that you can play it here and it's cool. And later when you can get the hardware, when the hardware is available, maybe that March date from EA is a little telling, that you could then have access to the better version, right? To the upgraded edition. So that's my own take, by the way. I don't know what you guys feel about that. Do you guys just kind of agree with that take? Am I being too outrageous?
No, but I do think Sony and Microsoft are going to play chicken with each other until the first one cracks on that. And the first one has to say, well, we don't have quite enough. No one wants to be the first to that news.
Sony already said that they're going to be limiting supply around launch. So, I mean, that might be an indication that they're going to forge ahead with that date, but it's going to be like with the expectation that not everybody who wants one will be able to get one. It's going to be kind of like a Wii situation.
Yeah,
where it's like,
I think you're both right there, by the way. I think Sony could be saying that to make you go like, I can't get it. FOMO, buy it now. Like, there is always that ability for that to be a marketing approach, right? You say it's limited and then it's not, right? I mean, I think there really could be a reality of it being limited. There really could be a reality of it being marketing, right? I think we have to remember that blurred line. Joe's rolling his eyes, and I always love that.
I think you might be reading into it a little too much in the sense that like maybe some of the specific messaging today was geared towards that, maybe. But I think either way, even if the new consoles were to be plentiful this holiday season, I think publishers learned a lesson at the turn of the last generation with cross-generation titles, and maybe people being slower to adopt because of that worry. Not will I be able to get the console, like is it available, but like will I have one? It's expensive. Will I buy one at launch? So then I think that publishers saw a hit to their next-gen sales because people were just like, I'm just going to buy it on Xbox 360. I'll just buy it on PS3 and play it there and not worry about the next gen version until later.
Also,
true.
So I think that move, I think the like smart delivery is a move to ease the transition overall, not necessarily related to what the supply is going to be in, November or whatever.
That's true. And it's a win for consumers either way. So you're totally right, Joe. You're totally right.
And it is nice that we do, to Joe's point, we have kind of that backlog carrying over into the next generation consoles. Like Sony, I think, said like the 100 most played PlayStation games will be supported right off the bat. And then Xbox is like, well, yeah, pretty much everything that works on Xbox One will work on Xbox Series X. Because I can't tell you how many times whenever I start over my my next generation, like when I buy a Switch or when I buy an Xbox One, it's like, oh, well, there's like 10 games available for this system. I guess I'll buy this, like the big launch game and then some crappy indie title I've never heard of because I want to fill out my library. And then it's nice I'm not gonna have to worry about that going into this generation because like, there's going to be an abundance of games already. It's like I can already play all these games on my Series X from day one. But also to the other point about them trying to kind of ease the transition over with smart delivery and thinking about whether or not they would want to launch this year, even if it's like whether they can or not, it might not be a question, but whether they want to, because, we're kind of in such an uncertain economic situation where, if things don't adjust or course correct in the near future, we might have, record unemployment numbers, which would very much hurt any kind of next generation launch. So even if they have the capability, if, there's 30% unemployment and there's not a whole lot of people who would probably want to drop $400 or $500 on a new console, they might delay it until the situation is better just so they don't have abysmal launch numbers.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a great point. I mean, I feel like games have been a little Teflon now, but I think games would also be silly to assume that we will continue to be Teflon if the economy continues to have challenges. I think that's very real. I do tend to think that if I was unemployed, I mean, I'd be like, how do I get the next? I just want to sit around and play cool games, right? You know what I mean? Like like that's me. But I agree. Those are all very real pressures on this generation and what it's going to mean as we go to this new generation. So that's a very interesting conversation. So today, they showed some games. They showed 13 games in total. There were a lot, right? So I'm going to just read through a quick list of those games just to kind of get them out there. We saw the highlight, of course, being, in my opinion, being Assassin's Creed Valhalla. They saved it till the end, so I assume Xbox agrees with me. They showed Bright Memory Infinite from PlaySim. They showed Call of the Sea from Raw Fury, Chorus from Deep Silver, which made me laugh because I immediately thought of Chorus, an adventure musical, which is a different game. And then I saw Chorus, I was like, this is the worst musical I've ever seen, because it's I had a different thing in my head because the game does not look it's very dark, right? Let's just say that.
It's so weird for two games. I mean, like last year we had Outer Worlds and Outer Wilds, but what if they were both called Outer Worlds and one just got a subtitle, different subtitles, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's so weird.
Definitely very funny. Dirt 5, Madden NFL 21 was shown very briefly. Scarlet Nexus from Bandai Namco, Scorn from a studio called Ebb, Second Extinction from Systematic Reaction, The Ascent from Neon Giant Curve Digital, The Medium from Blooper Team, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 from Paradox, Yakuza Like a Dragon from Sega. So there were a lot of titles shown today. Now, before I get your take, I didn't want to start off with, I have to comment on this because I just have to comment on it because Andy sometimes can't control himself. The very first game they showed was this Bright Memory Infinite from PlaySim, which I think they chose it because number one, it showed, I got a gun, I got a sword, I hit shields, I drive a car. It had every weird fantasy all wrapped in one. And
it was the gamiest game trailer I've ever seen.
Oh my God, wasn't it? and not only that, but it was and it's got ray tracing, and it was so much ray tracing that it was oversaturated and looked weird and goofy. And then when you read into it, you find out this is a game that was already out on Steam a year ago. It was an episodic game, and then they canceled it, and now this game's coming here. It's from a studio called FYQD, and then when they finish it, they go, that whole thing was made by one developer, and I'm like, no, it was not. Get it out. And if it was, then that explains why it's oversaturated, weird, and just trying to lean into all these video game cliches. So
welcome to next gen.
Yeah, I look back and I just go that is there's no version of me that says we start with Bright Memory Infinite. I think it was a bad choice. And it had a weird, do you want a really budget version of Crysis? Yeah. Right. And I was like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Okay. So that one, I think, just let's not even talk about that again. I wanted to get that there. This is not one we can rediscuss. You can't bring it up as a disappointment because it's a disappointment for everyone, right? Okay, so
it does have Infinite in the title, like Halo Infinite.
Yeah. Oh. Well, then I'm buying it. Okay,
that must have been the thinking, right?
I thought Doc Brown was going to pop out at the end too, Marty, where do you want to go in the door?
Right. So there were 12 games announced today. So let's talk about what was exciting for you. Brian, you spent a lot of time working with Xbox. What today were highlights for you? And what was perhaps maybe your low point from today's reveals on Inside Xbox?
So I guess we'll start with the low point because it was what I expected to be my high point, which was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I am so overwhelmingly excited for that game. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is probably my favorite game in the series, so I am chomping at the bit to get to what's next. But I was just so underwhelmed by how little we saw of that game. I wanted to see actual gameplay, not just hey, here's a guy standing here. Let's quick cut to the next scene. All right, thanks for joining us for that look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's I wanted to see more of that. It felt like that should have been the announcement teaser trailer, and then what we saw at the announcement was this is the actual trailer.
I think that's a good point. I think sorry. I mean, I think it was a mistake on whoever made this decision to frame that as a gameplay trailer. I think was just a terminology mistake.
Yeah.
I think that if they would have just said, "Hey, we've got another Assassin's Creed teaser trailer that you can take a look at," I think it maybe would have tempered expectations a bit, because I was in the same boat that Brian was in, where it's when they say coming up Assassin's Creed gameplay, and then they do the trailer, and I'm like, okay, another cinematic trailer. And then they cut to the interview with Ashraf, and I'm just like, wait, was that it? That was the gameplay trailer?
Yeah.
It looked cool, but it was not what I was expecting from it.
And yeah, they were teasing it the entire stream at the bottom of other trailers and other coming up Assassin's Creed Valhalla gameplay trailer. And it's oh wow, this is going to be something cool.
I mean, or compare it to that. What was the Namco Bandai game?
Scarlet Nexus.
Scarlet Nexus.
Yes, Scarlet Nexus. That's what, when you say gameplay footage, that's what you expect to see.
For sure. And I think that was actually one of my highlights was Scarlet Nexus. I loved Scorn. Second Extinction, I think, looked kind of cool, in a dumb shoot dinosaurs kind of way.
Yeah.
Are you just going down the list of games now?
Those are just the ones that stuck out. Yes, I was looking at the list of games just so I could refresh my memory. But yeah, those were the ones that stuck out for me.
I do have one question, though. To your Assassin's Creed point, I think this is interesting, by the way, is that one, I felt a lot of these things were not as much information as I wanted. I actually don't feel Assassin's Creed stands out that much because I feel a lot of them were pretty bare, right? You know what I mean? That it was very topical look at these games, right? Even ones that got an interview. But I can't help but think it would have been great, which I know would have been hard, to have that gameplay demo for ACB, like that classic Call of Duty moment where they come out and they play a level. Do you know what I mean? Or play a part of a level, or do like just show him like a seamless assassination, like pan up to the Viking warrior, turns around, walks through a street, walks up to someone, assassinates them. We would have all gone crazy, right? I mean, you know what I mean?
Running on
like,
the rooftops, something like
for a
that.
minute.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm talking short.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But just if it would have been seamless, here it is running, that would have been a capper to this event that would have got people hype, regardless of what they saw.
Definitely.
You know, prior to that. Like it would have been something that brought it all together. And I think, to your point, I think we were all kind of hoping that was going to happen, that we were going to get one that was going to really solidify it as not clips, but as a like gameplay.
Yeah. And in defense of Yubi, I get not wanting, that's something that's going to pull a lot of views to your channel and a lot of buzz around your specific branding. So I get not wanting to show that off right away. But to Joe's point, I think it was poorly messaged that
you used to work in marketing, right, Alex?
Yeah, I did.
No, I'm saving it for Game Informer's YouTube, which you should follow and like and hit the bell so you can get our content when we send it out. Thank you very much. So Alex, what did you like? What was your highlight?
So actually, Shea touched on it for a second, and I don't know if it's going to be a great game or not because we don't know what it actually plays like. But Scorn was wild. That was trippy. I was like, it took me about halfway through to accept that wasn't an Alien game, because it was very much like Promethean in some of the sculptures and some of the iconic visuals of it were very Alien.
Oh, it's so Geiger.
Like,
it wasn't even funny.
Yeah. So I was like, I kept waiting for the xenomorph to pop up and it never did. But I think that's that left one of the biggest impressions on me and was one of the more memorable trailers. I'm curious to see how that plays, how much they dive into the sci-fi creepiness, and I want to know more about what kind of game that's going to be, because I think the visual style of it was very distinct and something, as a huge Alien fan, that I'd be interested to see. The one that had me the most excited, though, Assassin's Creed is Assassin's Creed, and we'd be excited for it regardless of what we saw today. Call of the Sea really stood out to me. And got
for me too.
Yeah, and it got me thinking about the potential of like walking sims on next gen and how cool some of those could be. I liked the kind of like, I liked it wasn't just like we're looking for like my husband in just a normal sense. I liked that it was a little bit more mythical, a little bit more kind of like fantasy adventure almost, and it got me thinking like, oh, this could be a genre that could be even better on Series X. And one of the things that really like made me go, okay, this could take this to the next level type of thing.
Yeah, that world felt very inviting.
Yes.
Like that trailer was one where you're like, I want to go there. Oh, look at that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, waterfalls. I mean, it had all those kind of things that felt like a place you wanted to be. I would agree with that.
It kind of felt
I feel like that's
Sorry.
I feel like that's related to our comment on the podcast this week about underwater levels and whether or not they can be good.
Yeah, we could find out from this game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a little Shape of Water here, a little Firewatch-esque kind of. And like if like Rare made it, it seemed a little Sea of Thieves visually too, which I'm all for. So, that was definitely the game that I was like, okay, cool. I'm excited for this one. Ascent was on there too that I didn't initially. I thought it was just going to be like another shooter, but the fact that it is top-down co-op, that interests me. But I would say my biggest, it's hard to call it disappointment. I just think my expectations were too high for this coming in. And it's interesting to me that one of Microsoft's first showcases of Series X is ranged from one big AAA, but then a lot of, smaller titles. And I guess I didn't walk away from it thinking, okay, this is the future. This is what we've been waiting for. And I guess I didn't get an answer on, and that's fine. Like, not every game is going to blow me away graphically. That's not what I'm looking for. But like, I didn't get the vibe on, like, are these load screens going to be diminished? Like, how is this going to push this further? So those are the answers I guess I still need, and I guess that will come probably in June or July whenever they do their big stuff. But it felt weird that they were billing this as like the first big thing, and that's kind of what it was. So
yeah, you stole my disappointment, Alex. That was the same thing. I think
And now you're disappointed in that.
yeah, doubling the disappointment.
No, I think kind of like we were talking about with Valhalla earlier. I think part of it's just a mistake in terminology in the way you're presenting something and setting expectations for it. Because if you set expectations for this event, like, hey, finally you are going to see next gen games. This is what the next generation of gaming is going to look like on Xbox. And really, it's a lot of cross-generation games that none of them seem to do anything to highlight the capabilities of the new hardware or what's going to make that next generation like unique or exciting. It felt like you could have shown this press conference at E3 last year, and even then it would have been sort of a shrug of a press conference, right?
Yeah.
No, I think you're totally. I mean, I think a lot of times you look at a lot of those games and say, I don't know that I say that that's impossible on current gen, right? Like I
mean, it's not. Most of them are also on current
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, you're totally right. But you're to your point of like it didn't feel inspiring. I think
right.
maybe
Yeah.
this defines the new generation for me. This is what draws me to it. I did see that the Dirt team later talked about how the fact that there was no loading really helped them. Later, the Medium team mentioned that they were going to move back and forth between multiple realms, and that having no loading enabled them to move quickly between those realms as they kind of like visually showcase. So those were examples that they talked about, but you're totally right. They didn't show how that was. And that's the other thing too, for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, their big moment of like, look at this looks so amazing. I've been playing AC Odyssey lately, and I'm like, AC Odyssey looks amazing. Like it looks as good as these games, and that game's a year old, right? Like so. I think there's a reason to be. I think underwhelmed might be a good term here. You know what I mean? Like there is time for it to be corrected, but we really want to see something happen to there. It does have that feeling of, and I brought this up at other times. Like when you say like the biggest, most important thing that happened was that we have a solid state drive. It's just so hard to show like how a solid state drive makes your life better in a trailer, right? Mm-hmm. Just like when we all talking about all games are HD and everyone watched those HD trailers on standard definition TVs, right? For like, like it was like, I can't tell what that push forward is. Now, that said, I believe publishers and developers that we are going to see and understand the power of the new generation as we get there, but it is something very hard to show an example of, right? And I think today we are all victims of that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and I don't want to go ahead. No, Shea, you go ahead.
I'll just say the best thing that I think Sony did with when they first revealed that the PlayStation 5 was going to have an SSD was like, oh, when you fast travel in Spider-Man on PS4, it takes, a minute and 15 seconds. But when you do it on PS5, it takes 1.5 seconds. I think that was like the most demonstrative part of like the advantages of next gen. And it was like one of the first messaging points that anybody put out about their next gen systems.
Yeah, and Microsoft did show some like quick movement between games, like as far as like things that the hardware did when they were showing like multi pause states, suspended states that you could go back and forth between games. Like that, you look at it, you go like, oh, that makes my life better. That's cool, right? And that's to your point. Again, great point, Brian. That those are examples I think we'd all like to see more of in these game demos. That would be very helpful. Joe.
Oh, I guess I was just going to say not to be all on Sony as we were accused of in the community section.
Sony ponies.
Yeah. But I guess I think back to Andy, you were in the audience with me when we saw the PS3 like next gen game reveal, right?
Yeah.
And even though it was total baloney, I think back to that Killzone trailer and the enthusiasm and like, I mean, this sort of jaw drop of like, that can't be real. That can't be possible.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't, I still think that's the kind of excitement or enthusiasm, or like you said, like inspiration that when you bill an event as we are finally looking at next gen games, that's the feeling people are looking for. And I think that's the big thing that was missing.
Yeah. So you went through some of your disappointments, Joe. Do you have a couple of highlights? Do you have a couple of highlights in there for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, obviously Valhalla, I'm sort of on with Alex on that, where it's like, I'm just excited for that. And seeing a new trailer for that, I am on board, even if it's whether or not it's gameplay, like I'm excited for that game. I thought it was cool to see a raven on his shoulder instead of an eagle. The sort of traditional, Zeus symbol is cool, or not Zeus. Odin is what I meant. Yeah.
We've been playing a lot of Odyssey. Yeah. We forgive you. Yeah.
Turns out. But then the other thing, even though I wasn't, I haven't really played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines before, that trailer was, disturbing, but also is like, man, that kind of put that game on my radar in a way that it wasn't before.
I'm very much with you. Like, I didn't play that first game or however many games there have been in that franchise. I've not paid attention to that franchise at all, aside from just hearing about it really in passing. And that trailer made me interested in that game. So yeah, I'm very much with you.
I really like vampire fiction and mythology in general, right? But then I play a game, I reviewed Vampire or Vampire or whatever for us a few years ago. And that's one, it just did not deliver what I was looking for in a sort of modern vampire experience. So if this game's got that going on, I will definitely check it out.
Yeah, that trailer kind of made me laugh. I was like, someone likes the Joker scenes, right? With Donka Sheen playing and the dancing. I was like, but it was very cool. It was a good trailer. And I think was a good show for Vampire and a good win for them, but you're right. It looked, I want to play that game, but there was nothing about that game that I was like, I need to play that game on new gen, right? There was nothing that felt new gen about that trailer.
Those load times.
Yeah, that we can't see.
But yeah, that's another smart delivery game. So yeah, it is entirely going to be on current gen as well as next gen. So yeah.
So I didn't hear either of you guys bring up two of things that I really, I'm not going to play it, but I did. I thought Scarlet Nexus, which I know we touched on earlier, looked really good. I was like, hey, you know what? Bandai Namcoing like nobody's business with this one. I think they've got a really great game. I think for those kind of fans, I thought it looked really good and was definitely, I just thought the art looked really crisp. So I was definitely engaged in that more than I normally would have been. And I loved the second the medium popped on screen, I was like, that feels like The Omen, which, by the way, The Omen is one of those movies that has just warped my life forever. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Omen, but it is a weird, just creepy movie, right? And all the imagery that they showed just brought back Omen memories for me, which I really liked. So that's Blooper Team. They said it was going to be available on Xbox Game Pass. It had music from Akira Yamaoka from Silent Hill. There were a lot of things in that demo that made me think of Alan Wake. It had a weird vibe to it. For me, the medium was a game that really stood out. I feel like as far as what they showed, and in the talk afterward, they talked about how it was late 80s and Krakow, and just the way that it was going to use two worlds and move between them. I walked away not knowing what the medium was and going that's on my radar. I'm really interested in that. So that one really stood out to me. And there's
another one. Oh, can I bring up one more too?
Yes, please.
I forgot to talk about Yakuza.
Yes.
Which is another thing that looked cool to me, even though it's that game, it's already out in Japan. So it's not exactly edge of your seat here or whatever, but I am excited for that, partially because Like a Dragon is kind of a reset for the series, because one of the intimidating things about Yakuza is it's a long sequential story from entry to entry. And I think even though this takes place in that same world, it focuses on a new character. It uses turn-based RPG combat instead of the traditional action brawler stuff. I played a little bit of it at TGS last year and was I came away from that really excited for it. So it's kind of a thing Valhalla for me too, though, where it's I'm excited for that. I'm going to play it. I don't know that this was a particularly blow your mind showing of it, but it's an upcoming game I'm looking forward to.
It also seems like the first time that we're going to get it on Xbox at the same time as other platforms, because it's always been a PlayStation series, and then Zero and Kiwami came over recently to Xbox One, so now it seems like Xbox players won't have to wait for this. They said it's going to be an Xbox Series X launch title, which is really cool, and I think that I'm super into that game. Like I can't wait to play that, but I feel like I've seen almost all of that footage before. The only thing that was really new was Nagoshi, the creator of the series, kind of giving his rundown of like why you should be excited for this game, which was pretty much just marketing bullet points, but still exciting. I'm excited for that game.
Yep.
I think we've covered most of the games. I think the two that I'm going to bring up quickly, just so we've kind of like checked that box, is that, hey, there was a car game, Dirt 5, looked good.
Looked great.
They're going to have 4-player split screen, right? You got to always have that next gen. Do you have a racing game? Yeah, we got a racing game. So Codemasters is working on that. That looks good. I did like that they said it was going to have 4-player split screen. That's always a fun thing to have. It's nice to have co-op games. And then quickly too, it was cool to see Pat Mahomes on there, giving us a glimpse of Madden.
The breaker of curses.
Yeah, the breaker of curses. And he had an interesting quote that was that not just what you can see, but what you can feel. Like that EA was really pushing this feel agenda, which I was like, it's interesting. I don't know if there's things about Rumble or other interactive things that are going to happen through hardware that are going to make it where we could like feel something better, or is it just garbage marketing, which it could be, right? You know what I mean? Like feel the hits, hit stick. Woo!
The game,
I don't know.
The game comes with a bench player from the NFL to hit you every time you make a tackle.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time you tackle somebody, it hits you in the bat.
It comes with a mask drenched in Pat's sweat. And you put it on your face while you play, so you smell.
Oh man!
Smell football player worn gear the entire time, so you can really it feels real. It's in the game.
I'm writing that down for Game Enforcer next year.
So Andy, there was one more game we didn't talk about. Bright Memory Infinite.
Brian Shea. And with that, Brian Shea has broken the show. Thanks, Brian. Thank you all for joining us on this special edition of the Game Informer Show to talk about Inside Xbox. I think we were all maybe a little underwhelmed today, but certainly excited about the future. I love the way Xbox is really, I feel like they've really been leading the way into the new generation. And I got to give them a lot of credit, and the team over there, Phil, Aaron, everyone at Team Xbox, a lot of credit for not only building, I think what I'm excited about to see in July, which is what your first party's doing, because you have a lot of exciting things, I think, going on there. And secondly, that I think you've done a lot of things to improve the lives of consumers and make purchasing games better. And I think you deserve a lot of kudos for that. I think you've done a lot to create a diverse lineup for the Xbox. I still going to mock you as we leave. Like, oh, it's just called the Xbox. And then they call it the Xbox Series X the entire time today. They are just as confused by that as we are, but I understand where you're coming from. Thank you all for listening. Please subscribe. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Hit the bell to get more content from us. When it happens, you can find out. It'll send you a message and say, hey, Game Informer's talking stupid on the internet. I can go enjoy it. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.